Welcome to our greenhouse. We are getting ready for fall and winter time. I had a list of about a half a dozen things or so that I wanted to share with everybody and try and get accomplished today. So I've been getting a ton of stuff done today, and I wanted to share what all we're doing to prepare for fall and winter in a DIY greenhouse with DIY heating and stuff like that. So if that sounds interesting, please consider subscribing. Let's jump right into this video. So one of the first things we do in the fall time when it's starting to cool off, we pull any warm weather fish like guppies. So we're pulling all guppies out with a net. This net right here, I had just taken the hose out of here and I was collecting debris. There is just a mess of debris, and I simply caught this with an easy DIY solution. I just put this net about a foot in front of the hose's exit, just blowing it and giving it a little distance from the end of the hose allows it to pick up some of that debris and blow it right into the net. So we saved ourselves a bunch of time. We have a ton of debris out of the water. Now we're just left with a few leaves and stuff in this water that we can easily skim off the top with this same fish net. Now this is our compost heating tank. I had unhooked all of our water, all of our lines, because I had to completely empty this thing out, scrub it out, get all the lime scale and just any sediments that were formed and stuck to the side, because I don't like that peeling off too much and clogging my pumps up. So I want the best operation possible when we're running this DIY solar powered compost heating system. So this tank is strictly for the compost heating, and I will be covering this up tonight. I have my frame that goes over it, and I'll put a shade cloth or a tarp over it just to stop any algae growth. We don't get too much algae growth in the winter, but this thing was full of algae when I just took it out back and scrubbed it out and cleaned it. So we just got done refilling this. It's nice, cold, clean water. I scrubbed this thing for about a half an hour. So I wanted to get this situated and have a nice clean system to start with. The next step will be to blow our lines out with an high pressure air. So we'll use an air tank and blow those lines out to clean any sediment out of our compost heating lines. But not everybody has a compost heater. So the first thing on my list actually was to fill all of the tanks and fill any water sources. So let's take a look behind us. So let's take a look at the second water source on this end of the greenhouse. We just had 110 gallons plus another 55-gallon drum that is completely full now. A nice freshly painted black drum, sealed up so we don't leach anything into the greenhouse. And we've got our lines ran. That is for a later date, the heating experiment that comes with this tank being full. So stay tuned for that in the future here. Let's move on to the next water source that is in the greenhouse. As we're making our way to our next water source, which is our greenhouse pond, I wanted to stop and show this little frame that I built. I mean, it works great. It does stick out a little bit because this tank is oval and this is obviously square, but I saved myself a bunch of time and work by just making a square tray. I can put aquaponics bins in there in the summertime. I found a ton of uses for having this frame to sit over my compost heating. Let's jump over to the pond. So this is the third water source on this half of the greenhouse. Go ahead and feed my son's fish. So this is a new addition to the greenhouse, as well as that tank, even though we've used a ton of tanks in the past, rain barrels, just as simple thermal mass without really doing any heating to them. So that is a new experiment coming down the pipe. But this is also new to the greenhouse for the winter, so we're going to be doing some experimenting with trying to keep this warm enough, some solar power, compost heat, whatever we can use to achieve 55 to 65 degree temperatures to keep these goldfish and koi alive. So last night we saw 40 degrees and 41 degrees the night before, so it is darn cold. All the tomatoes are wilting back a bit. I mean, 42 is about to cut off. So heating is on the forefront of my mind because those cold temperatures came in and they came in quick. We weren't ready for them. I had my greenhouse doors open. Thankfully, we had a bunch of thermal mass that warmed up on a sunny day leading into that 40-degree night with no wind at night. So the greenhouse did stay relatively warm in here. It was about 52 to 53 degrees in the dead center of the greenhouse. So it was almost 10, 11, 12 degrees warmer than outside just by sitting stagnant with all of the heat of the greenhouse releasing back into the air overnight. So let's move on as I get carried away talking here. This was our third water source. Slowly make our way down the greenhouse. We will be taking that little pump out. We use that for our compost heating experiments. The solar panel, that pump, the controller box and battery. The pump is actually in the pond, so we'll be using that for a simple small compost heating system. Stay tuned for that video coming up here shortly. Lots and lots of plants. Try not to trip while filming here. So this is another large water source, and I didn't even mention, so I got this aquaponics here, and we've got that large mass of plants, this large mass that leads up and has the waterfall running out and the cascading mint into the pond. This is just a biofilter here. Try and show the roots way down there. So there may be a few little baby guppies swimming around in here still. We've got to come through and check those, but this pump pumps the water up from the bottom of the pond, so technically it'll be 50-degree water if it's sitting low enough down there, because this pond's about 4 foot deep, so pretty protected over these last cold couple nights. But this whole system holds a lot of water, and it keeps a lot of debris out of our pond here. Jumping back down to our other 100 to 120 gallon tank here, you can hear our little bubbler screaming away, just bubbling. This is all the aquaponics plants that I had pulled out, just basically forgotten about. Look at all these goji berries. There's actually a goji berry on this, and we've got roots coming off of those. They sat in there for almost a month, so they were doing really well. Got a bunch of chard in here, a tomato that got cut off in the plant, and then look at just how much root growth it's got. We're not gonna keep this, so I wanted to show this. We're gonna toss it in the compost pile, but holy cow, root system. This is the pot that it was in, and it got broken off, and then it got laid sideways in the aquaponics bin and just went nuts. So water does work, especially when it's got some nutrients to it. We've got little peppers and kales and stuff, just stuff I had forgotten about sitting in here. We've still got some leaves and stuff, and the water is coming up. So what I'll be doing is filling this up and letting it drain out, and then taking my pump and disconnecting it and stuff, so we can swap this out, pull the guppies out of the pond down below, and get them inside to an aquarium so they don't die in the cold weather. But this is going to be a heating tank, so we will end up taking all of the guppy water that's down underneath, bubbling up and being filtered through all of our plants that were in there. We'll be feeding that to all of our crops and into the ground after we pull our tarps. So something pretty important for the fall time in a greenhouse is just simply washing the walls down. You don't get all that buildup, and if you have to scrub them, sometimes you have to scrub them if it's a window. So we simply come by and spray the entire greenhouse. I covered up all my electronics and everything, batteries and whatnot, and any solar systems that are exposed, so I could just spray the entire greenhouse and wash any dust or buildup. Anything that gets kicked up and stuck to the side of the greenhouse, you can get everything washed off and cleaned up to allow the most light in, because we need every ounce of light that we can get in the winter time. The next thing we like to do, if you have solar systems, I like to wash our solar panels, go check out all of your panels, make sure they're clean. We had one break, so we poured some clear epoxy on the cracks, and that sealed it up, but I don't know how long that'll last. So saving money and taking care of everything that we have so it lasts longer is our goal, to increase the longevity and decrease the price of our investments. So I'd already shown the aquaponics bin down there, a little pump running it. We have one 100-watt solar panel. We've got a pump running the water to our tank here, so we've got to move water there. That's another solar system we've got. We've got our geothermal that we just kicked on to test out. That's operating. We've got our solar system down here. We've got both of our solar systems there, and one of those is used to operate our pond. The other is for all of our compost heating needs, and we've got a bunch of fans that we can piggyback off of this little system with our geothermal and our fan for our compost heating. So we're able to kind of multitask some of those systems to heat a lot more or move a lot more air with just one solar system. So as you can see, this battery has been in a dark, shady spot, and the batteries are full of water and lead, and they like to condensate, so you can see all of that buildup. I've got to clean all of the terminals on my batteries. They all seem to operate pretty well. There was one battery, this battery right here, that I have to go test to see if I can charge it up and put it back on a system. So getting all of your solar systems set up and operating properly before the winter hits is very important. Quick little side note here, you see our window and the window actuator. That is hooked up and operating. Even though we've got our stove running sometimes, we still have our actuator, so heat is going out. It's not the winter yet, just cold mornings that we want to come out here and start a fire. So we've got our window actuator down there. As soon as you start closing the doors of your greenhouse, you really want to have those actuators on because you can cook your plants, and that is the next topic. Planting. You want to plant as much as you possibly can. Trying to get the camera focused here. We still got tomatoes. Those won't make it all the way through winter unless we've got a very good insulated greenhouse and a lot of heat coming in. Just lots and lots of life in the greenhouse so far, and I'm just going to keep expanding upon it. We've got all of our leeks. We've even got some ever-bearing strawberries coming up there. That's cool for a late season. We've got a bunch of rhubarb in the corners there. So just getting things planted. We've got all these well-established crops. We've got to plant more. We've got some onions seed popping up there. So we've got a lot of work. I was leaving this room open for compost heating and experiments, and then we are going to set up our tunnels in a video very soon here, and basically all these tarps will be gone and we will be planting. Once you've got yourself set up and everything's cleaned up, ready to go, you've got good soil on your beds, which is the next topic. Amending your soil, adding nutrients back to the soil. Especially if you grow in the summertime, greenhouses get super dry, and that open soil allows those organic materials to basically oxidate, and then you lose some of your nutrients and stuff. So it's better to have a crop down, even if you're not going to use it. Find some use for it, hot compost, something, just to keep the ground covered, because it's not good to have open ground, especially in a greenhouse where you don't get any rain. So having all of these free water sources help ramp up the humidity, but it is very dry in here if we don't water for a week or two. So wrapping all those things together that we've achieved or began and are going to achieve here very shortly, planting very early, trying to get things going, and heating by any means necessary. So heating is going to be the last thing. Take some steps. Look at some of our videos if you want some references. There's lots of great content on YouTube here. But feel free to check out whatever you want to on our channel relating to DIY free heating experiments or John Payne compost heating. Getting some type of heat source, even if it's just passive heating, there is tons of methods for that also. So if there's any questions today, I'm going to be bringing some compost heating experiments in the very near future. We're just getting rolling here as the temperatures are starting to cool off. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching this. Huge shout out to my subscribers. Thank you guys for being subscribed, watching all these videos, commenting, liking, sharing. So thank you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.